The brothers Wisp. The brothers Wisp, brothers Wisp. The brothers Wisp. The brothers.
You're now listening to Greg. It's the Brothers Wisp. Let's take a ride through.
Hey everybody, this is Greg of the Brothers Wisp, number 120, coming out of the motherland, College Station, Texas, where we had our first football game of the year. Apparently they allowed 20% of the people to actually come and join the game. No tailgating. People were very upset. There was rioting and looting. Not actually. I'm not sure if people really cared or not. I know I didn't. So let's talk to our guests today. We have some familiar faces and some we haven't seen for a while and we really miss. And I'm glad to see another one, but you'll never know who I'm talking about. So, Mike Hammett from Chicagoland. How are you, bud?
Oh, not too bad.
Excellent. That's like, well, you're alive, so there you go. One more day. Obviously, my plan hasn't worked yet, so we'll see next week. Tommy Krugen, T-Cent, all the way from Colorado land. What's up, bud? Evidently, the legalized weed's
I'm doing
kicking
excellent.
In, so there we go.
No, that would be the Coors.
Oh, you're mispronouncing it. It's Coors.
Oh, Coors. Actually, we just call it water around here.
It's like Colorado water. Excellent. Why is it always so yellow? I'd hate to see what your pool looks like, bud. Justin Miller from Virginia. How you doing, bud?
Doing good, doing good.
Oh, what's that look of disdain on your face? Why are you shaking your head?
I heard they're going to call that the Corona Bowl there that you got going in Texas.
Oh, probably. Yeah, because aren't we the only... Yeah. We're the few, the proud, the ones that carrying the staff for everyone else. You know what's fun is I'm wearing pants today. This is the first time, fun fact,
That's definitely
that
an
I've worn
improvement.
pants since March. I went to go say happy birthday to a friend of mine, and came back, and here I am, and I'm still wearing pants, and I've got shoes on at the same time. Last time I wore pants, I had flip flops on, so I feel almost like a real boy. Before you know it, things will be back to normal. So let's jump right in. We have a new patron this go around. So if you're not familiar with us, which I, happily prostitute myself every time we do these things, we have a Patreon account. It's patreon.com/brotherswisp. You go in there, you throw us a couple of bones, we give you access to our Patreon-only Slack. And this go around, we've got someone named Excel. That's their name. Their email address was very vague, and it was at excel4.com, and I was thinking, is this spam? I'm not sure, so I sent them a message, and they replied back, so we'll see. So perhaps it's just a spreadsheet. I'm not sure. We have...
I'll happily take their contributions, even if they are spam.
No, it's just that it was really interesting. I haven't seen anybody just be so anonymous before, so I don't know, just curious. But what else do we have cooking? We have Cambium. So Cambium is a sponsor for us again. They're still doing the EPMP bundle. I think they've been rocking this thing for like a couple of months now. I think maybe it's going to be a permanent SKU. I don't know. But it's a bundle that gives you, let's see how fast I can get through this. $6,000 value. You're getting it for $2,000, so you get the price discount. You get 6 months of Visp.net. That's near and dear to Miller's heart. You also get the RF Elements Twist Horn, 2 hours with an EPMP network engineer. No sales pitch on that one. And you also get a CN Heat trial if you're so interested. And again, that's Cambium, and we've got a link in our thing.
I just looked back through the show notes. It looks like the middle of April was when we started doing
Holy
that.
cow. So more than a couple of months. It's been a little minute. Maybe it's the quarantine special,
Yeah.
so as soon as the lockdown lifts, they'll kill the special. Who knows?
Yeah, I just recommended it to one guy on the WISP Talk page. He was talking about starting up a new deal, and I was like, hey, you can save yourself a boatload of money and get yourself really cool gear. Although he only had like a $5,000 budget, so that would have eaten 2/5 of that. And he had to go on he had to buy routers, switches for 2 towers. I think he could have gotten away with probably just one router, and then probably just one switch if he was willing to deal with PoE.
I've seen some old Linksys routers
Which
Goodwill. So right there, that's like $40. He's got 2 tower routers. He's ready to rock.
apparently he had two gigs of fiber going into the first tower, and he was trying to get it to the second tower. I was like, well, you're not getting both gigs, but you can distribute it for under $5,000.
I guess it depends on distance.
So it's all right.
All right, so we've got
3
another
months.
sponsor, our long, steady sponsor, Sonar. They are a scalable, intuitive, and comprehensive ISP billing and operational support system, and that's at sonar.software. Speaking of Sonar, Simon, the owner of said organization, is going to be a guest on a very special podcast here pretty soon. I think we're just going to do a dedicated one, not necessarily one of these. I don't want him mixing in with the riffraff. No, it would be more dedicated. So the premise is he can tell us what Sonar is, and then the rest of it's basically Q&A. So if you guys have any questions you would like answered, we've got a Google Doc up in the Sonar channel, so you can get the link to it there and then fill in any questions you would like. Well, I guess we could probably put it in the show notes as well. Make it available for anybody to...
No. Keep it in the Sonar channel so that if you want to submit a question to Simon, you have to join our Patreon.
Excellent. Also, we're going to have room for a few guys, a few talking heads in there. I'm not currently a Sonar user, so I'm just going to be in there to, I don't know, what do you call it? Referee? Moderate, maybe? So we need some folks that actually use the products to speak intelligently about them. Cool, calm, and collected. So look forward to that for sure. So, what else do we have cooking? You guys want to talk about hardware first? That's usually kind of
I would love to talk
fun
hardware.
and short. I think most people are probably more interested in the hardware bits anyway than the other stuff. So let's see. Scrolling down, obviously I procrastinated on this, so I didn't organize everything appropriately. So all the hardware's at the bottom, but the Mikrotik Cap AC3 non-LTE, they have a $99 price tag on that. It's also got bonus. If you go to the product page, you can see Norman's the pirate tell you all about it. I say that because he's got the amazing beard going. So I mean, I guess you could call him a hipster, but I think I'd prefer to be called a pirate. So I'll go with pirate. I don't want to insult him. It's an interesting router. You guys keen for that? I love the HAP AC squareds. They're my jam. Of course, this one's more expensive than the HAP AC squared, so it's got more power, theoretically, right? Like more throughput. It's got that ARM CPU in there, which is a little scary at the moment. You know, just kind of with the uncertainty of like the 4011s, how people have been having some kind of weirdness with that. Makes me wonder.
There's a second
Well, in
rev
the
of those.
2004s.
Oh, there's a second version of the 4011. Didn't somebody say they
Yeah.
like saw it on one of their SKUs or something? Or
Yeah. There's a V2 now, or R2.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't heard anything else about the 4011. Interesting issues, or I guess it's also the 1009s. Is it those?
2004s.
2004s. Sorry,
2004s.
there's too
Yeah.
many things. I can't keep it all in my brain. So
Yeah.
I think Chad was being a cool guy. You know, so usually you think Chads are bad guys, but this Chad's a really good guy. And he's been running some special firmware direct from Mikrotik, helping them trying to suss out what's going on with that stuff. So hopefully we can get some resolutions soon on that front. Are you guys interested in these AC3s? I think Miller, one of the first things you said is it's just AC?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not multi-user MIMO, not Wi-Fi 6.
Yeah,
Where's all the cool stuff?
I was just looking at the comparison between the two of them, and this performance-wise, out of this throughput, they're not identical, but they're pretty close. As in, you're going down to the 64-byte packet tests, and they go from at most 8 megabits apart down to closest they get's 2 megabits per second. So that's not the exact same, but it's pretty close. So then I struggle to find a purpose for it. I guess I guess there's an advantage in having the external antennas.
Yeah, it's got external antennas. It's got a lot of RAM in it. So theoretically, you could do a lot of funky queuing and stuff like that, right? You can hold a lot of routes with it.
Massive address list.
Yeah, you got 5 gig ports. It's got good throughput. It's got a lot of processing power.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be. I mean, I guess if you're just starting, yeah, that'd work out pretty well actually. And honestly, for like a business router, like if they only want one router and they aren't really willing to spend the money on a 4011, I mean the HAP AC3, you got the external antennas. You can set up even bigger antennas if you really wanted to get more coverage. I mean that's a big plus in my book actually, just because with the external antennas.
If you compare it to the 4011 with the Wi-Fi built into it, it's like, I don't know. I would take the 4011 over this thing. It's got 4 antennas. It's got all the same kind of stuff, and it's got a 10 gig SFP port on it. It's only a little bit more expensive.
Well, 2.5 times more expensive.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think the HAP AC stuff is really targeted at like home users, right? You're gonna stick it in a house, whereas the 4011 is really kind of like more like a business connection sort of thing, I guess.
Yeah, you're rocking the HAP ACs. I use the HAP AC lights, and honestly, they get really good coverage even with the internal antennas. I've been impressed. I've told people, I'm not going to cover the entirety of your house with one router, and then after I set it up and get it running, it actually covers the whole house pretty darn well, like pulling 20 megs, which is more than enough for basically.
Yeah, I mean, if you're sitting on the toilet in the back of the house, you're still going to be able to watch your YouTube just fine, right?
Yeah,
that's all you
very
need.
much so.
I've been looking through some more of the specs here, and its radio is slightly worse than the AC squared. I say slightly as in, I think the 5 gig band, it's the same in terms of transmit power and receive sensitivity, with 2.4 being 1 or 2 dBs per modulation worse on the transmit. But then its antenna gains are a little bit more. It's a 0.5 dB more antenna gain for 2.4 and 3 dB more at 5 gig.
Wouldn't it necessarily have to be lower because it has to follow EIRP at that point?
Well, like at the lower modulations where you have a higher transmit power, I could see that, but at your high modulations, there's typically, transmit power constrained, and it's still constrained there.
Okay.
I did see that it uses about 50% more power. So that not a big deal if it's just sitting in somebody's house, but if you were to have this on a battery site for whatever reason, that's a consideration.
I gotta say, these things are aesthetically pleasing, though. They're
It is a nice form factor.
It does look good.
Yeah, it looks a lot nicer than. I mean, the 4011, I like it because, like, oh, that's awesome. And all the ports are on the front. I hate that routers have the ports on the back. But, yeah, it looks fine. I mean, Mikrotik has really gotten on top of their game for, like, making things look nice. I mean, just think of back to the original HAP AC, that square white box.
I remember taking, the RB, was it the 953s or whatever? Or, no, 933s.
Yeah.
Where's the 9-port models with all the PCI cards and buying the aluminum cases or the steel cases and putting them together. And that was like,
What
not as cool,
liked,
but it was neat.
I think the first one that had kind of an interesting case design, wasn't it like the HAP Light? I mean, they started out with the white square that looked like an RB750, but then they went to the stand-up where one side was white and one side was blue, and it had kind of the swoop at the bottom. Actually,
HAP Light.
yeah, there you
PC.
go. I actually dislike that form factor because it doesn't lay on its side. Like it's all wonker jawed, and then like if I want to fit it to a tight space, I had to like take my Dremel or hacksaw and like cut off the little swoops so that I could shove it into area. Like I've got like 6 that are like I had to slice the legs off. Hey.
So then you like the HAP ACs that have the removable base.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely enjoy being able to have a little bit more modular.
They use that WAP form factor as well.
Oh
no,
yeah.
No relation to the song, but just the WAP AC and the WAP R and it was also the FTC and also the WAP 60s. That form factor. And also the MUPS was in that same form factor. It's like they had this. We ordered like 10,000 of these cases. Let's use up excess or whatever, or 10 million.
Yeah.
Let's use up the excess.
It's clever.
How else can we make
you
use
make
of
the
this?
design once and you just fab a bajillion of them. And also I kind of like the industrial look of them. Sometimes I think that's a cool look. When it like looks very, very foreboding. Like don't mess with this piece of equipment. It's like a real thing that's over here. Of course, you pick it up and then it weighs like 6 ounces, right? So it's not very substantial, but it looks right.
Yeah.
Wait till you pick up one of those Net Power 16Rs. Those things are heavy.
And some of the 60 gig stuff has like big heat sinks on it now, right?
Oh yeah, they do.
Yeah. Well, that new outdoor switch has that massive heatsink on both the front and the back. The 16R is what you were just mentioning.
Yep.
Yeah. That thing was.
And
awesome.
the R is for reverse, right? You PoE power that thing in for their.
Oh.
Isn't that what that stands for?
No, yeah, actually, I misspoke. It's the 16P PoE out. Yeah. Net Power 16P.
So what's this CRS3xx? What's that action about?
Well, the cheapest 10 gigabit Ethernet ports you can find. For $100, you can now get 2 10 gigabit Ethernet ports that will do line rate. Yeah, basically.
Yet, isn't that the CSS? Meaning it has switch OS?
Looks like
the link goes to the 106 instead of the 610.
Oh, whoops.
Animal.
My bad. I apologize. Yeah, well, I apologize.
2 SFP plus ports. How many?
Yeah.
8 gig ports and then 2 SFP plus on it. Nice, nice. So really small form factor.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess it's Switch OS, but they aren't saying anywhere here.
On the spec page, I see where it says Switch OS.
Okay.
And it's $100 is the MSRP. Storage size 64 kilobytes. Okay, so now I know why it has Switch OS instead of Router OS. I would gladly have paid an extra $10 to have
Router OS.
storage and have Router OS.
Well, I think sometimes they're locked into whatever chipsets they're using, right? So maybe the 64K is like built in or something.
It's
It
probably
also
targeted for something that we're not intending it for.
There you go. Fair enough.
Some third world, cheap switch needed somewhere. I don't, seems to be what it ends up happening.
We always want our cake and eat it too, and then eat everybody else's cake.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
I don't see any USB ports, and so maybe they have no method of adding that any kind of additional storage. It could be a chipset limitation where it doesn't even have USB.
Maybe the Router OS 1 will come out soon. I just got this one out.
Be. So it's got a barrel jack and a PoE, so you can dual power it. That's cool with 2 SFP plus ports.
This has the Marvel chipset too, so Andrew Thrift probably would be able to answer this for us, but I haven't seen do you know what else has that?
I don't keep track of that stuff the way that maniac does.
I think just kind of paraphrasing what I remember from Thrift, the Marvell chipsets are better than the Realtek chipsets. And
Is it that? Or is it the other way around?
Or I haven't. Marvell sounds better than Realtek.
Mine, but yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I could have that backwards.
For sure.
Thrift is awake. He commented on my Facebook about 10 minutes before we started this, so he could have been here to defend himself.
Was it our Australians can't get up before 11 in the morning? So this technically started at 10 in the morning, so it's it's just a little too early for them.
So they put the CPU number on the specification, and if you Google search that, you can find a page where they're selling the CPUs individually. So the CPU is $43.78. And this guy has 70 of them in stock.
Oh,
so,
I've used Octopart quite a bit to buy all kinds of miscellaneous electrical stuff.
Interesting. All right, so let's talk about the 3011. Thrift says something that he just assumed everybody knew. I had no clue, but I found it quite interesting. He was saying that 3011's, the switch chip that happens to be on the router itself, doesn't allow for mixed speeds on the same ASIC. So if you're running gig devices and you have a 100 meg device that's plugged into the switch chip on the 3011s, then the ports will start flapping randomly. Or so it could be all gig and you're fine. It could be all 100 meg and you're fine. But as soon as you have some switch in there, so I've seen equipment before where it negotiates at a gig, and then once a week for whatever reason it'll flip to 100 megs for 5 minutes and then it'll go back. So I'm assuming in that situation your ports will just start flapping theoretically sporadically if that happens. So that's a unfortunate unintended side effect. I'm assuming that's why they switched off that chipset for the 4011s and other models. So for anybody out there running 3011s, if this has been plaguing you, I had no idea that was a problem. I do now, though. So Thrift needs to just quit assuming that everybody else knows about this weird stuff, and he just needs to tell us all about it more regularly. Have you guys run into that?
Yeah. I don't have any 3011s in my network, but FYI, there are 2 separate switch chips. So you could have Ether 1 through 5, 100 meg, and 6 through 10 be gig, if that was a requirement for you. Just as a slight workaround, but you're still, that means you're losing 5 ports down to 100 meg. But both switch chips are both hooked up to the CPU directly, so it's not the end of the world, but that sucks a lot.
This is the face of a guy who just realized why he lost a $600 a month customer a couple of years ago.
Oh man.
I had a 3011 at their site. It had diverse Mimosa B5C backhauls. Their router was an old Cisco, and they kept complaining that the port was, or that that they would keep losing pings every few seconds. They'd lose a ping, and I tried and tried and tried. I couldn't find it anywhere on the network. I didn't see anything going on. I had no idea what they were talking about. They ran a 3011. I had gig backhauls. They had an old router's probably only 100 meg. That's probably what was happening.
Sigh.
I have 25 3011s still in my network.
Any problems with those?
I don't think so.
You guys are you guys are gig all the way.
We're mostly
aren't you?
just or more these days.
Oh, you peasants out there with you.
Oh
man.
So that is a pretty nasty little bug there.
Yeah, I guess it's just an anomaly of that switch chip. Nothing they can do about it. So just be wary. I mean, the 3011s, the ones I've used here and there, I don't think I have any more in my networks because I've, there were some in the previous employer's network. I don't remember having any problems with this, so I guess I didn't run into this. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, maybe I did. Oh, Yeah. Oh, I just remember the airport was flapping and we just could not nail it down. Oh, man. I bet that's what it was. And we had a 3011 out there. Booyah. Maybe I'll give him a call later. I don't know why. It just now occurred to me. Okay.
So I bet I'm not the only one in this cast to realize that a 3011 has screwed them in the past.
So I've left that old job behind, right? That's dead to me. So I haven't been thinking about it. That's probably why. But yeah, there you go.
No, but I have 3011's a bunch of other places in my network, but everything must be all gig because I don't have any other problems.
Rock and roll. All right, so moving on to some other hardware. This is hardware you guys need to help me with. I'm looking for a small indoor UPS. Like in my MDU, I need one at one of the telco spot and then one at kind of the core. They don't need to have a ton of uptime or whatever. I just need to, have something in there to help that stuff stay up in case of quick flips. But I've seen UPSs in the past where they'll completely drain down, and then if you want to get them back online, like once the power returns, you have to actually go and poke the button. And I don't want to have to like call the maintenance guy and try and get him to poke the button and do this. It's like I want it to just come back online. So if you guys know of something simple, doesn't have to have a lot of uptime. Even if I guess I have to roll my own, get like a DC charger and a battery, or because I know I've seen some. Was it like Meanwell sell some small like units?
Meanwell has some UPS units that you can use. Yeah, and then
really
they have
small guys, right?
24-volt power supplies or 48-volt power supplies you can feed it with, and then it's like you hang batteries off this other one, and then you have the 24-volt out that you can use, or 48-volt, depending on which model you use, to power your stuff. So, what are you trying to power? How much power do you need to have? How many watts?
I've got a CCR 1016, but I probably also the telco's using like almost like a fiber to the X sort of infrastructure, so I want to plug their stuff into it as well. Do you know what I mean? Because there's no point in just having my stuff up. So probably those two, and then upstairs I've got it's a CRS3xx that I want to keep up.
Yeah. So the 317s you can replace the power supplies in with DC power supplies. Probably do the same thing with the 16. I don't know about the 1016 model specifically, but we do it with the 1036s, the second revision of those, and the 317.
It's such a low power output. I guess I could just put like an inverter in there, right?
You don't need much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
could if you wanted to. Yeah.
FYI, the 317, I can verify on that as well, that we just swapped out the power supplies on that as well for a DC deal. And you'd be pulling, it was 48 plus 44, so about 90 watts.
About like a light bulb. And
95.
I guess also if I'm pure DC, random idiots in there can't just start plugging into my UPS and stealing all my because that would never happen.
Well, they might,
and I've never done that to anyone
but they'll
else.
screw it up.
Yeah,
we have that problem with coworker spaces where we do the infrastructure and the service, and some company will move in there and like, oh, we gotta like have our own firewall, our own blah blah blah, and they'll go in there and try to plug into our UPS, and we're like, no. So you gotta watch out for that kind of stuff.
put super glue in all of the extra outlets and stuff.
Yeah.
Super glue and baking soda.
Or just fake power cords and just run them into the side of the rack and just secure them in some of those holders just so you can't see where it goes.
Put a little alarm on it just to annoy them.
They're fake power cords.
Excellent. All right. Well, maybe I'll look into maybe like a little Meanwell thing.
I've done some research on that. I can get with you. You need some help.
Let me know. Let's see. What else do we have? There was some acquisition news. So this doesn't really affect me or impact me in any way, but Cradlepoint was acquired by Ericcson. I guess that was a pretty big deal, right? That was an American-based company, and they got picked up and sold. I'm sure several listeners here use it, and I know MSPs tend to use them a lot, right?
Yeah, it's
Boatload.
it's and they're real popular in anything cellular related.
Yeah, that's the only place I know people that use them. It's for like cellular backup. You can sometimes slot multiple cellular carriers into one and dial out and have backup, all that stuff.
Yeah. Oil and gas, anybody who needs to be remote in weird places and they just need something fast, Cradlepoint's super popular.
Right.
Uplinks as well. In this situation.
Yeah.
Rock and roll. All right. So also, Nvidia purchased ARM for $40 billion. You know, just chump change they had lying around. You know, they dug in the couch cushions and pulled that out. So, as we all know, a lot of embedded equipment nowadays runs ARM processors. So, who knows what's going to go on there, right?
Andrew Thrift was actually kind of alarmed by the acquisition because historically ARM has just been, or has mostly been, a licensing play where they license their technology out to other people that actually then produce chips. Whereas Nvidia clearly is a chip maker. And so there's kind of thought of what's going to happen to everybody who's licensing ARM now that the people they buy it from own, also will make their own chips. Are they going to keep it as an IP play, or are they going to start making their own ARM CPUs?
They already kind of do with the Tegra X1 and T1 chipset.
Okay.
Something like that, yeah.
It is, the Nvidia Shield television. I don't know if it's exactly ARM, but it's very close. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a boatload of money, and I don't know if Nvidia will go the way of Intel and shut down the licensing of x86. Like Intel shut it down, so now it's Intel, and AMD is the only other company really that has a license to make x86 processor. There's some other tiny itty-bitty companies that do it as well that have legacy licenses, but you can't go to Intel anymore and buy a license to make an x86 processor.
I bet you could.
Right now, I bet you could very, very well. But yeah, Nvidia's, I don't know, man. That seems like it would fit right into kind of their business model, but I don't know if that really is going to be. I think they're just getting it so that they don't have to pay the licensing, and they can just have this unified system.
I think it's a smart move on Nvidia's part, purchasing ARM. It's definitely positions themselves very strongly.
Well, I mean, Nvidia's been doing a lot of stuff in like the high compute space, right, with the GPU processing and all that stuff. So I'm sure this is just folding all that in, right?
Yeah, they have a lot of expertise.
Didn't they
in that
pick
area.
up like Mellanox or something like that not so long ago? To kind of
and so now they
tie the networking
own
piece
both the Tylera technology and ARM. Now that they bought ARM, yes, they own lots of different, CPU technologies.
Rock and roll. Interesting cats. We'll see what happens there. I'm not going to hold my breath one way or the other. Just going to see what happens. Let's see what else. So there was I know there was a major Windows flaw that came out. I believe it was on Active Directory, and it was labeled like a 10 out of 10 security warning, and it kind of silently released. So you should definitely, if you haven't already, update your Windows Server infrastructure. We got a link to that. I don't know anybody that's been hit yet, but why wait? Go ahead and do that. I even updated my lab stuff. Good on me. Let me pat myself on the back. Even my lab stuff got updated. All the lab stuff with no passwords. So there you go. All right. What else do we have? We've got somebody put a link up to H.266 video compression. It's promising to use 50% less bandwidth. I think that's pretty fascinating. It reminds me of when Miller and I went to that like fiber thing in Austin. What was that thing?
Oh,
It was Nanog, right?
No, it wasn't Nanog.
Oh, broadband.
Yeah,
communities?
broadband communities.
yeah.
So
Okay.
they were talking about how you had to have fiber, and these folks were talking about, it's like, oh, but we've got copper, we've got a gig, and it basically boiled down to one guy was challenging the speaker, and he was saying, as soon as we reach some limitation with the existing copper infrastructure we have, people come out with new compression technologies. They come out with new techniques.
Yeah.
And we just keep squeezing more and more out of our existing infrastructure. So how can you tell me I need to rip every bit of copper out that I have and replace it with fiber? I'm going to get left behind. And so every time I see something like this, it always makes me go back to that one guy standing up in this room full of people saying all that.
Oh, that was me.
No, it wasn't. Was it?
I was like, why are you trying to run fiber to all these MDU apartments? Well, there's already existing wire there that you can make use of. You can just do gigabit to the unit, which is the current play that everyone's currently trying to do.
That was you that did that.
And I was asking. And
I remember thinking that guy was my hero, and then
I think it was Brian with Pavlov up there too that was on the panel when I was asking. I didn't know him back then, but it was pretty funny.
Oh,
So did Greg just say,
Superstar.
I thought he was my hero, but now I just know he's Justin Miller?
no, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
not.
Superman and Clark Kent.
'Cause everyone-
No, I always knew he
they were
was
like-
the hero I needed, but I didn't know he was the hero I deserved. So there you go.
They were like coming up with a budget to do a rip and replace of the infrastructure with fiber, and it was like thousands and thousands of
It was
dollars.
insane.
And the infrastructure's already there. And like, we got TV on the coax, and we got gigabit on the copper Cat 5 here. And if it's Cat 6 or it's Cat 6A, Cat 6A you can do 10 gig in the future up to 100 meters. So what are we doing here, guys? It's so much cheaper, so much easier to manage, and
I know, and it's
whatever.
also interesting if you think about it. By the time that existing infrastructure, by the time you really need like this new capability, you really need that volume out of it. I mean, we're going to be so far in the future that I'm sure there's going to be new technologies that can use that same wire.
Yeah. We're gonna be giving people 10 gig to their house, their unit, and they're still gonna be using 30 megs for Netflix.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, let's be
compression
honest
techniques
here,
are
because
just
that's
gonna
what it
keep
boils
getting
down
better
to.
And better and better. So
Yeah. Well, there is a limitation on how much you can actually compress data before it is no longer compressible.
I don't know. Well, I've also read some stuff that people nowadays are getting more and more willing
Middle out.
to deal with lower quality, like with audio quality, going from like CDs to
Potato
MP3s
pictures,
and stuff like
yeah.
that.
Yeah. I mean, whenever I was repping CDs, I'd do the 320 kilohertz, some non-variable bit rate. That's how you got to do it.
OG over here. All right.
Audio file. No, not really. Not with that.
And then you listen to it with
It,
your
Go the FLAC.
$5 earbuds, and you're doing great.
No, I got some Sennheiser, H595s. They're pretty
That
decent.
means nothing to me. I'm not an
I had some.
Someone HD 595. Someone will recognize that and be like, "Oh yeah, I've
I'll
heard
say,
of
oh yeah,
this."
that guy's a baller.
Someone.
Yeah.
They were expensive when I bought them, but
And someone will say, oh my God, what's wrong with that guy? He should have bought XYZ
Yes.
instead.
those things suck. Those suck.
Dude, that is,
Your dollar per performance is absolutely terrible.
that is a.
Yeah.
I've noticed that as a
Odd.
very polarizing community, like the elite audiophile guys. I mean, you think it gets nasty on like the Ubiquity forums or whatever. It's like those guys.
Yeah.
Those guys go for the throat like immediately. It's pretty nasty.
Yeah.
You know what? It kind of makes me jealous. It makes me think. I wish I could feel that passionately about anything. Like, you know what I mean? It's like I feel so apathetic. It's like I can't be bothered to care that much about stuff. And so just, that'd be nice.
Ah, don't let your wife hear you say that.
She knows. She knows. She doesn't care. She's the one who married me. Good Lord.
Love you, honey.
We had, and so to circle back, I wonder how this will compare. So, like, I was looking, I've been looking at the Hanwha cameras, and they'll do 264, 265, but standard, or they have some sort of special sauce that they pour on the top that really takes it down, and the capacity or the throughput demanded down a lot. I wonder how that special sauce will compare to a native 266. Because 50% is about what I was thinking their sauce was. And I guess then in the camera space, as we roll out more fiber networks or other high capacity networks, you kind of start to be less concerned with the capacity of the network as you are, how much storage space is that going to consume? If you've got 200 cameras, it's real easy to supply the network to store it or to move it. But 200 cameras worth of storage is a lot different ballgame. And if you can cut that down by 50%, that'll really make an impact.
Yeah, that's a really good point there. That said, every bit of compression that you're going to be doing requires higher CPU utilization to achieve that. So that's going to be interesting to see what the CPU requirements are for the new hardware. I mean,
it could also be done in hardware too.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Do they make little chipsets that would, fix all of that?
Probably.
Yeah.
They will, but I was reading in one of the 266 articles that it took 265 like 8 years before it really got solid adoption. Like, it's only been solidly adopted for a couple of years before 266 is out. So it's going to take several years before 266 is in mature chipsets to be taken advantage of. Just in time for 267 to come out, I guess.
It's the nature of things.
Yeah. Speaking of things that just come out, Mikrotik in their latest newsletter had a pretty cool little snippet that Thrift spotted. I noticed it too. I guess they built a network for some hospitals and such like that for genome mapping and such. And eventually, their line was, the network will be upgraded. It's currently 100 gig or 10 gig, and it will be upgraded to 100 gigabits data transfer rate. Wow, using Mikrotik devices that will be released soon. Wow, jeez, I cannot speak now. So, that's your line is $6,000 value for $1,995. Which I think is hilarious. Probably what they will be releasing it at.
That'd be interesting. I'm assuming it's just going to be a switch product, right? Not a routed product.
That's what they'll have first.
Speed.
Well, the new CCR series in their alphabet soup of stuff, one of the prediction was that there was going to be a 100 gig model. I don't know that I've seen any model predictions for switches but then that said, switches are currently, they have a 40 gig switch and only 25 gig router. So who knows, which one's going to cross the line first.
Yeah, I guess they don't have a 25 gig switch.
Are any of you using 25 or any of its iterations?
I was using some 40 for a little minute, but that was it.
I'll be using 100 soon.
Of course you will.
So, yeah.
Bragger.
Juniper stuff.
Yeah, for the IX, we've got we're moving one of our data center links up to a 40. Dual 40s because it's a protected path. And as we were evaluating how to handle that, because right now we're using FiberStor CWDM gear, which is tough to really grow on, and so we're going to swap that out for DWDM gear. But then they make 25 gig DWDM modules, but then passive modules, but they don't make anything bigger than that, because a 100 gig is just 4 25s. So then we're kind of back and forth as to how we handle that. I think what we decided is that we'll just keep with a native 40 in the 1310 port, and then if we need to move to 100 gig at some point, then we'll just swap out to native 100 in the 1310 port. But because there's not a lot out there for switches that support 25. I mean, we've got one, but
the Juniper EX4650 supports 25 gig ports.
I should say not a lot out there that's WISP or cheap people price,
and also 100 gig. So.
I'm I don't know, like as I start to turn up more of my own fiber infrastructure, I get less excited about the big capacity pipes. Like, oh, I can throw 100 gig down. Yeah, but I can also throw down 48 25s if I wanted to, and not have to change anything.
Yeah.
If you're buying a wavelength, it makes a big difference. But if you've got your own glass and your own, passive muxes, 10s and 25s seem fine to me.
I think you guys are just being inconsiderate.
How much you want to spend?
Talking about these speeds around folks like me that have no need for any of that. I could fit everything. Everything I do would fit well in a 1 gig pipe right now. All my various places. So you guys can suck it. Well,
I was gonna say, like, for the IX, we've outgrown, like, we've got to this one data center. I think we've got 2 10 gigs going each direction around the ring. And it's like, okay, well, do you add a third and a fourth? And then how many do you keep adding versus trying to find a better way of skinning that cat? And the primary reason why is that most of the connectivity for this exchange is in data center A. Data center A is out of power, so there's not places to put a whole bunch of caching servers.
Well, as in power you guys have ordered, you're almost out of it, or the data center can't supply more?
The facility is at capacity. At capacity enough where they're not just going to, it's not trivial to just start, tossing circuits around. They also, the same entity owns data center B, where there is no power constraint of any kind, so we put it over there. Only now we then have to transport all the cache boxes across town and build the infrastructure to do so.
That sounds fun.
I've been trying to financially incentivize our clients to connect. Just go to data center B. We'll take 25% off your port if you just connect over there instead, so we don't have to worry about hauling it. Some have taken us up on it. Some of us, some haven't. So,
gotcha.
Whatever.
Excuse me. Excellent. So, I've kind of rearranged some stuff a little bit so that it flows a little bit better. But let's see. So I was reading. So this is kind of what I do. I comb through, and it takes me like 2 hours, man, before I cast, because you guys put so much stuff in there, and it's all good, and so I have to sit there and read it all. But Chad was talking about somebody brought up running cables inside of air vents or something like that, and Chad actually is a firefighter full time, and he also has been on the investigation part. And so one little nugget of wisdom he left that I found really interesting. He says, if your cabling equipment or holes are listed in the fire investigation report, the ensuing insurance suits will do everything possible to have someone else pay. So the idea being, if there is a fire and they can somehow pin it on you, guess who's going to be paying for that? So be very cautious and wise with your cabling. I would even say make friends with an electrician that you can just ask questions about whenever you're doing that stuff, right? Because while you might be meeting code in one area, another county might be completely different. Or it's certainly state to state. I know all that stuff varies. So definitely be careful with that stuff. Just a reminder, because we've all seen some crazy shoddy workmanship, and I am personally, I don't know any other way of doing it than shoddy. So so definitely be
Sure.
cautious.
And then on that, code may vary, but also just because you followed code doesn't necessarily mean that you're free from fiscal liability. You may not have any criminal liability in the matter, but if the insurance company says, but this happened, you're this and this, even though it was by code, it was still a contributing factor, and now you pay.
Fair enough.
That's why I've been looking at. That's one reason why I've been looking at for the DSL fiber company, trying to find someone to outsource that stuff to.
Limit your liability a bit.
Your fall guy.
Yeah,
That's what I heard.
well, I mean,
Scapegoat.
for that, the primary reason is that I got to looking back and somebody purchased, a fiber circuit and hosted PBX and managed services, blah blah blah, and I had a field tech that spent 2 days out there running wires and doing this, doing that. I could have had him doing something other than running wires. Anybody can run a wire. So I was like, who can I pay to run these wires so that I don't have to worry about it? And then now hearing them with the liability, it's like, oh yeah, that's another good reason. Someone else can shoulder that.
Yeah, just make sure they're insured.
Yeah.
Right. So
Insured, bonded, so on.
another interesting one that came up, and I thought this was kind of more discussion worthy. It's time off in IT, and everybody knows, every cast, Mike talks about how much vacation time he's always taking. But it's so funny how a lot of us feel like we can't walk away, we can't ever get away. Even, when you do have the opportunity to take a vacation, if you have your phone with you, is that truly a vacation? Because you're thinking about it, you're looking at it, you're probably going to get called on it. But we were talking to some of our European cohorts, right? So you've got like Pedro over in Spain and the guys over in the UK. And they were all talking about how they have like mandatory time off, which I thought was super interesting, which was an extremely foreign concept to me, that you would have mandatory time off, right? Like dictated by the government, that you would have people have time off. And I think Pedro said it's like mandatory 20 days. And I think Ollie was saying somewhere around 20 days, something like that. And then the guys over in the UK were saying something about like a mandatory 20 days and then 8 days of like bank holidays. So it's like 28 full days off. That's pretty bananas. And which I thought was interesting, that Pedro had just realized that over in the US, there's no guarantee of any vacation days whatsoever.
Time
Yeah.
off, yeah.
So he had quite the opposite experience that I had, that it was actually mandated over there, and over here, it's like a free-for-all. And I was just thinking about, man, like I've rocked it on my first job. I think for the first two plus years, I only had a week of vacation. And then it went to 2 weeks. And at Fibertown, I think for the first like 7 years, I only had 2 weeks of vacation. Then it went to 3 eventually. But often enough, I was so shorthanded, like we wouldn't get enough, like they just wouldn't hire enough staff. So a lot of times I left that stuff in the can, like I couldn't use it, even if I wanted to. And unfortunately, they didn't have like buyback or whatever, so it was a use it or lose it scenario. So I ended up, it wasn't all bad. So when I left, I had, I think, like a month and a half of vacation saved up that they had to pay me out on. So that was nice, at least. But I don't know, what's your concept of vacation in IT? How do you guys deal with that stuff? I know how I deal with it now, and I'm basically retired, so I don't have to worry about it. So I can't pretend like I'm in the same boat as any of you cats. I was just curious what your take on this.
So were you retired before or after you started playing pickleball?
After I started playing pickleball, right? I guess it was like one made me realize, hey, it's time to retire. So there you go. So Mikey, I think you're one of those cats that's going to tell me that you just don't have time for vacation. You can't handle it.
Yet I was thinking of that 20 days per year, and it's like if you were to exclude conferences, which are generally what I use as vacations. Because you're working at the conference anyway. Excluding conferences, you'd have to go to at least 5 years to get 20 days, 20 weekdays off, I would say, for myself. But I don't think it doesn't bother me. Like,
do you reckon that's because that's the way it's always been?
Or he's doing what he loves, so it's not really work, right?
Is that what it is, Mike?
Yeah.
Never work a day in your life.
Well, that's what I've chalked it up to a lot. I mean, obviously there's some aspects I don't love.
Just some, huh?
But also, I grew up on a farm where like there's never a day off.
Fair enough.
Ever. No. Like up until my dad had his health issues started a few years ago, he probably only had 20 days off in 20 years. Period. So it's like, it's just natural. Like, oh, you just work.
Yeah. You know what's funny is, like right now, the work that I have, it's challenging, but it is hella fun. It's like I'm solving a puzzle every time. So, like, I'm thinking about it a lot. And whenever I get the chance, it's really fun to get in there and start tweaking and tuning and turning knobs and stuff. So, I kind of have that itch that I had a long time ago that was burned out of me. So, I can see if I can keep this momentum that I have now, I could, you know what I mean? It's like I could plausibly see enjoying working for the foreseeable future. I get that again. Like I understand it again. It's still, I super enjoy my time off now though. I don't know, a little perspective from me, it's like, I was hoping, Mikey, that when you had your heart attack, that would, maybe make you step back a little bit and kind of reevaluate and possibly think about taking a little bit more time for yourself and maybe some of the others around you. Because it's usually, big life-changing events that sort of change your perspective.
Sure. Yeah, no, and I suspect that part of why that didn't really change a lot is because, as it turns out, it was a fluke. It was just caused by medication. Medication's done, so it's not going to happen again. Theoretically,
it's just that brush with death. Not necessarily that the axe is hanging over your head. That you dodged a bullet. I did take the next 2 weeks were limited to probably about 3 or 4 hours of work a day. And I couldn't do it. I was like, I gotta start working. This is driving me bananas. I'll consider it a success when I can go a month without working on the weekend. But more than just casual checking of email. Like actually like, oh, I have to log into the system for XYZ reasons. Even if it was just 5 minutes, like, okay, I had to work. Once I can go a month without having to do that, I'll be happy. What's so funny is you talking like that takes me back. So I used to envy people like Thomas Kernack. The guy is so brilliant, but he will spend literally a day reading an RFC, or maybe 2 days reading an RFC to actually physically understand how something works, like at its molecular level. And so he's just so good at what he does. He's amazing. He's an amazing engineer. He's an amazing programmer. But what I learned is I will never be Thomas because I can't bring myself to dedicate all that time. I can't turn off everything around me. And that especially changed when I like almost, it's cliche. My wife almost died, and so like everything sort of switched for me. So after that, I don't know, I just kind of looked through fresh eyes, and I try and remind myself not to get back to that place where I would just turn everything off. But, so it made me realize I'll never be that guy because I don't want to be that guy. But you know what? I also think people like that are driven, I think there's something in their brain that forces them to do that, right? Like it's like almost like a compulsion. Like Thrift, that guy's bonkers banana pants for like chip manufacturers and the newest thing that's coming out, and how you could, I think if you looked in his apartment or his house, he'd probably have like pictures of chipsets all over the wall with red yarn going from one to the other. It's like a compulsion. Like I don't think he can help that. And so while those guys are brilliant and I love to associate with them and be around them, I don't let that bother me anymore. Like you guys I talk to, you guys are so brilliant at like all these various things, but I could never be you. And it used to like bother
You're
me.
right, Greg. You could never be me.
I couldn't. Like the dedication you have, Mike, the hours you put in, like I can't do that. Like I don't want to do that. And so I used to think there's something wrong with me, right? Like I'm a lesser of a person, but I just realized no,
there's something wrong with
me.
No,
my energy's focused somewhere else. Like I don't know. Like it just like I've tried to do that before and it made me miserable. I just don't get it. And I know I'm looking at all of you, like Miller, you bust your ass. When was the last time you had a good chunk of time off?
Well, I have Monday off. I usually end up taking one day or like a Friday Monday thing. I'd go for the 4-day weekends if I can.
Cool. Maximize your time off.
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough to have a really good team, so that I can take time off if I need to.
That's good. I know that wasn't always the case. Good. Like you guys weren't always staffed up enough to let you step back.
Well, we're definitely not staffed up enough.
Nobody ever is.
We're definitely need to get some more guys, but it's the guys I got are really strong and really dedicated, and they're good. So,
do you feel like you take adequate time off? You get to spend the time with your. Is it Lucas? Is that your little guy? Yeah.
Lucas. Yeah. Yeah. No, I if I need to do something for school, I can. Good. I can pretty much take off when I need. Now, as far as like long vacations, have typically used the conferences for those. Those are I do find those enjoyable.
Yeah, I do
so,
too.
Not being able to go to Vegas this last year and the other conferences that have been canceled that I had planned. I had like 3 of them in a row planned. All got canceled. It's disappointment. So.
Well, yeah, it's for us and many WISPs, we've found such camaraderie in the industry, and I know some people they go to work conferences and it's just they just go to the session and then they go to the hotel room or whatever, and then they just can't wait to get home. Whereas me, it's I found out last year that JJ was going to be in Vegas. I was just I was not any more excited than I've been in a long time. So it was I haven't seen JJ in so long. It's just I was looking forward to seeing Justin and then other Justin and Tommy, and it's just just excited to go see the people that I don't see. And so it's yes, I'm working, yes, I'm learning. I probably gained more out of that conference than the person who just goes back to their hotel room at the end of the day. But it also doesn't feel like work because I get to see you guys. Yeah. And so it's and while we may talk shop, it's on this gigantic Ferris wheel, drinking, it's we're also still talking about towers and this and that, and so it's fun.
Like I guess the Austin Mum was the last conference I went to in earnest, and I had a blast with you guys. Like, it was to me that was a lot of fun. I think the only actual like things I attended there, like official. I think I went to a couple of presentations, and it was just people I knew who were doing the presentation. I wasn't actually like, like going to learn anything. So I really just, honestly, I just went to have fun, and I did. Just getting to see you guys and hang out was a blast. So yeah, I was definitely bummed, especially in this new role. They're paying me to go to conferences, so it's like wicked. Like, I get to go hang out with my friends, and you guys consider that as part of my job. That's crazy as well. So definitely looking forward to getting to do that.
Yeah. I guess technically, at least in Colorado state law, you're not allowed to use vacation time for anything that could be related to like work education. So when I went to the Austin Mum and when I went to WISPapalooza, that was that they were my job was paying me, had to pay me. So that is actually something in the rules, FYI, for anybody out there. If you're wanting to skirt the rules, that is one thing that you're technically not supposed to do. But yeah, by and large, like, we're all like, we were all nerds when we were kids, and we're all doing shit that we think is really awesome, and it's like, oh, this is really cool. This is really fun stuff, and we get to problem solve all day, and we are in a group of people. That was actually the big realization I had at WISPapalooza, is just like, wow, holy cow, the entire WISP industry is all about, like, let's just share my experience, and this is how I'm pulling this absolutely crazy thing off. Because we're all doing stuff that everybody thinks is wizardry. I mean, honestly, like, who beyond, your circle of friends in work doesn't just consider you like magic? You come in, work magic, and you are Gandalf. And that's what people's opinions are of us. And yeah, as far as like the work time off, I really appreciate that I'm able to do that, because like years and years ago, like Office Depot had a really strict policy. Like, if at the end of the year you hadn't used your paid time off, they forced you have to go. And I was like, well, but it's holiday time, and this is really busy, and I don't have, like, I'm a college student. This would be a great time for me to work, and I had to go take time off. Or, like, they always forced lunch breaks, and, if you worked more than 8 hours, you had to take, 15-minute breaks and stuff like that. And it drove me nuts, because I was like Mike, I grew up on a farm, and I was like, I'm just going to work. I have stuff to do. I want to get all this stuff taken care of. And eventually it wasn't that I got written up for, but they threatened to write me up for not taking my lunch breaks, because that's company policy, and it's probably also legal as well. And
it's a safety thing too. You can't be coming to work and getting low blood sugar and having a headache and fainting on the job if you're having to climb something, or doing something heavy lifting, whatever.
Yeah. So, I mean, where I work now is pretty nice about that, and it's like, okay, I can just do what I want to be able to do, especially now, that I'm network admin. It's very much, I run my own schedule, but I mean, yeah, it's really interesting how you, like, just the different world perspectives. Because, like, in the United States, you're just expected to negotiate your, what do you want from the workplace, and just switch around and find. And we have extremely high turnover in most jobs. And shucks, Greg, you're the, Greg and Justin, I think you guys are the only ones that I know who've been in a job longer than 4 or 5 years. Like,
yeah, I'm over 10 years now, so.
Yeah.
Previously, to that, my previous job was 8.
Yeah, I was 13 at Fibertown.
Yeah. I mean, unless you own your own business, most people are bouncing around between jobs, within 2 or 3 years. And that's just kind of the reality, a little bit different reality. And we get paid more, and we make more. We take more than home than anywhere in Europe. We're taxed a heck of a lot less. I mean, I know I would pay somebody who I get 12 months out of 11 and a half months out of the year, than I would pay somebody who I only get for 11 months, less than 11 months a year. Like, that's
Sure. Yeah.
a whole month that I have to find somebody else to cover for that guy for. So, there's pluses and minuses to it, and you really ought to look out for yourself, because your company is not your babysitter. They aren't. Yeah. Don't. Yeah. I had to commit some workplace terrorism, so that I could get what I needed.
Workplace terrorism.
You're committing that to video recording right now?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, what? Go ahead, speak clearly into the camera. What did you do?
I threatened to leave if they didn't change some practices. Like, I wanted my manager to basically manage me, and I wanted her to hire some more people. So I wanted a whole list of things. I made a whole list of demands, but she met the demands.
Did you title it your manifesto? Can you send it over to her?
It's the T-cent manifesto.
I should have just stapled it to her door.
Forehead?
To really, pull a real Luther there. No, I honestly, I did it nice. I thought I sat down and it was just like, hey, I want this company to be successful. You want this company to be successful, but I've been working 60, 70 hours a week here, and for months. And I've been saying, you've been telling me these things are going to change, and they haven't. And this other guy, who's my boss-ish, he's actually not my boss anymore. He isn't, but he's working, and I don't think he's worked less than 70 hours a week since January. Like, the guy, he's taken 3 days off this week because his wife is having surgery, and he has to, take care of her, when she's at home. And this is the first time off in the last 2 years that he's taken. And he never takes off early. He never, So he's working himself to death. And I was like, I'm not going to watch him work to death. I'm not going to work to death for you. I'm out unless you make these changes. And so she did. And so I don't have to change a job anymore. Thank goodness. I didn't think she would. But you have to be, if you're valuable to your company, you can do that. If you're not, then you do that, and they say, okay, bye. But it's right now is a great time to get.
Good.
He
He
just
just
walked
gave
in
himself
there.
a reason to leave.
You walked in there. There's no show without the show business, and I'm the show business right here. So
Yeah.
I'm the talent. You got to keep the talent happy. I'm leaving unless you make these changes, woman. Is that the way it went?
I was a little bit more bravado. I really tried to emphasize her need of me and not me of her. No, I try to be a reasonable human being, because I think she's a wonderful lady, and she's done amazing things for me and has been really nice. And if you have a good manager, that's something to be loyal to. But sometimes you just have to say, hey, this is the problem that I see. I need to take off a week here because I've been running crazy, and to do that, I need somebody who can replace me, or stuff like that.
What's interesting is I think you are unique in this. Like in IT, I think you recognize. I mean, you obviously dealt with it for a while, and you had talked to him, but you actually took a major step to make yourself happy, right? There's something happening. It makes me unhappy. This is not manageable for me. And you went and you had a conversation with your boss about that. I think most people in IT suffer in silence. We're afraid to, I feel like a lot, and I don't want to talk outside of my hoop, right? I don't want to talk for other people, but I've seen a lot of people that seem to be extremely non-confrontational. So much so that they will let themselves be ground into the ground, just beat down with whatever was going on at the time, as opposed to just having a conversation with them and giving them the opportunity to fix it, right? For fear that, oh, I can just be replaced, right?
There's definitely a fear of that, people not taking vacation because they feel like they can be replaced. That's definitely something I've seen in the more corporate environments that I've worked in IT. Take this week off, they find out that they don't really miss you, you weren't, whatever, and they just let you go when you get back. That's a real fear for some people. So,
I've seen it happen. Or I've seen somebody go on vacation, and then when they come back, their office is like in the basement. It's like they get almost like demoted while they're gone, sort of thing. But I think having the courage to speak up, I mean, and I'm talking about being civil, not like screaming at somebody, not like cussing, but just being civil and saying, hey, this is impacting me in these ways, and this is how it makes me feel. What can we do to fix it? Like, I think most people's bosses are human beings. I've seen some that are somehow not human, right? So that happens, right? So, I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody, but a lot of them are human beings, and when you make yourself vulnerable, they say, oh, shit, this guy's not in a good place. Oh, I don't want him to leave. Let's work on some resolution for this. So I think that's baller. It sounds like you made an ultimatum, which is even more baller. So I'm going to give you some extra, you the gold star for that one, bud. But I don't think I would have ever had the guts to do that. But that's cool. I think a lot of people should take steps towards making themselves happy. You know what I've done in the past is I've gotten miserable, and I eventually tried to speak up. So I went and talked to my boss about it, and he basically just said, wait. And so I found another job and left. And so I was like, just telling me to wait, it's like, that's not doing me any good. Like, I've suffered for a long time before I came and talked to you. So I don't know. That kind of burned me when that happened. And so if I ever get miserable enough, I'm just like, well, I'm going to look for some other way. I'm just going to go this direction. And somebody told me one time, jobs are like monkey bars. Don't let go of the one you're on now until you grab the next. So I always make sure I have another job. I'm not the guy that's just going to stick my middle finger up and then walk out the door, because I'm too afraid of that. But I think it's
house payments.
Yeah, and kids and wives and all that stuff. And but
That's
Plural. Wow.
Wives.
Oh.
Who's the other lucky lady that we don't know about? Raise your right hand.
Greg is from the Waco area, aren't you?
Yeah, you didn't realize I was Mormon, did you? There you go.
Yeah. To be fair to myself, like I'm not a hero in any regards. I spent months and months complaining and cussing and just being just continuously, it's the same stupid story every single come home and talk to a friend or talk to somebody else and be like, this is it was the same stupid stuff. And I just realized I'm complaining about the same thing over and over and over. Like, I can't extend myself and it's you have to have what I realized is I needed to order my life and like there are things that are more important than other things. For you, Greg, your wife and your kids are more important than figuring out what RST-218 is and how it affects random silliness. That is a true and good order in life. And I wasn't being healthy. I wasn't eating healthy. I was making very poor, just silly life choices in that regards. Way more nicotine than I needed in my life. Poor choices. And I was just getting more and more frustrated. It's this cycle, and I was just like, you know what? No, I need to order myself. And that, if anybody listens, order your life. Decide what is important to you, and move towards that. Because, I had a teacher one day, and he said, "God is not a communist." He's an amazing Spaniard guy, absolutely genius. But whether or not you believe in God, order things because you can only serve one master. and then everything else has to kind of fall out of that. So, choose something and roll for it. If if it's going to be your work, like, more power to you. Like, that's awesome. And that's awesome that in the United States you can do that, and you can be like my uncle who worked his ass off for Gore-Tex for decades and now has a boatload of money that he can, travel and do really cool things, but he doesn't have any home or family life. So, that's to you. That's up to you. You get to do that. That's your choice. So, props to you. You don't get so much of that choice in the EU, but you do get 28 days off or something a year, which is really nice too. So, definitely order yourself and, take care of yourself, because, we in IT, we are wizards and we really need to, the people around us need us. And it, they recognize that too. So don't sacrifice, you aren't Christ on the cross.
Don't suffer in silence, right?
Yeah, like the
Suffer
accountants get
loudly.
what
Yeah,
they
well,
do.
don't suffer to your
Yeah,
coworkers.
well-
do something that can affect change, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah, the
miserable
accountants get their
MFer.
calculators.
I give you
Yeah.
a little insight into my brain. I am very anti-confrontational. I usually turn confrontation, so I will manipulate the conversation and move it in a different direction. I'm sure you guys have seen that. But something I used to think was anger was bad, right? For you to feel anger was ridiculous. Like, you need to be able to control your emotions. Like, I had gotten so good at controlling everything and just squashing everything. But I read this book, and what I learned in it is it said anger is not bad, right? It's just like any other emotion. It said anger is your body's way of telling you you don't like something that's happening, and it gives you the energy to change that. And so I've learned that like the anxiety at work, like if I'm really unhappy about something, I still don't get anger. Like, that's not part of me. I've beaten that out of me. But I realize, hey, this is something I don't like. My body is telling me, my brain is telling me I don't like this. I need to change it. And only you are there to, only you are in control of your happiness, right? You got to take steps. Nobody's going to do it for you. So don't sit there, suffer in silence. Don't be miserable. Move towards it. That's I guess, is a long way of talking about, whether you are mandated vacation or not, do things that make you happy, mold the world around you to make your life what you want it to be. I've seen so many people, it's crazy. I've seen so many women that my wife associates with saying, I'm just going to wait until my kids leave the house, they go to college, and then I'm going to get a divorce. It's like, why would you say, hey, I'm going to put my life on hold right now? Like, that stuff blows my mind. So I can't imagine anybody saying, would you have the power to make things better if you are truly that miserable? Like, I've had points in my life, and I was never suicidal, but I thought, well, if I could just get a terminal illness, that would be so nice, because then I wouldn't have to worry about anything. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, good, I'm done. You know what I mean? It's like, that's how upset and stressed I've been, like, at various points. And so it's like, if you ever get to that point, you got to do something. Don't just sit there and be miserable. That stuff drives me crazy. I just can't. I was that way for so long now. I can't stand it when I see other people that way. So I guess that's kind of hypocritical. But I don't know. It is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the alcoholic who's like, dude, I've been there. Don't go that path. I've met plenty of people like that too. So, I'm not like you, Greg, in that I thrive on confrontation. You might see in the politics and religion on the Little Brothers with for $8 a month, you get to enjoy my ranting and
I
raving.
saw you getting spicy today, buddy. You were getting a little caliente. It was amusing.
Yeah.
I was
great.
I go, oh hell. My wife goes, what? I go, nothing. Don't worry about it. So I was laughing.
Yeah.
And then I was like, all right, I don't need to
I'm
read
glad-
this. I don't need to get into this mess. It was just like, oh, something's kicking off. All right, there you go. Religion and politics channel.
Don't worry,
I
we do it.
avoided. I just was going through the show notes and I saw that and I was like, whoa, I'm avoiding that one. Staying away.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Unless you love
Oh,
those relations. Don't join
yeah,
that
some
channel.
No.
people thrive on that stuff. So here's another one I wanted to ask you guys for advice on. I am pretty soon. So let me reel it back a little bit. Red Hat does this thing where they try and like partner with colleges. Right, it makes sense. Every major manufacturer does it. Cisco does it, right? And they'll give a college a bunch of equipment, and they try and encourage all their students to get CCNAs and stuff. You know, it makes sense that way. When they get out, they'll want to use the products. They'll be certified in it. So Red Hat does a similar thing. And so here in College Station, we have Texas A&M University, and I got the opportunity to speak to their cybersecurity club this week, and I love that stuff. Like, I love talking to young people, and I think I like the spontaneity of it, right? The impromptu nature of I never know what they're going to ask me, and then trying to make up something really fast. Because, you know, when you're lying, or rather when you're talking to kids, you want to lie as much as possible. You know, talk to them about Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, those sorts of things.
Tooth Fairy. Yeah.
Yeah,
we're just gonna let this mythical creature break into our house and go into your room, into your bed, and take the tooth and leave money behind, and then leave
part of
trays.
your
You tell them all kinds of lies, like I'm the real dad, and I'm just going to
That's
the
not
store to get
frightening
milk.
for your
I'll be right
kids.
back. You know, that sort of thing. But in a roundabout way, I guess it went well. And so a group of these students was that were there. I guess we are kicking around the idea of me mentoring some of them. I don't know what capacity. Obviously, I've made amazing life choices at this point if I'm sitting here talking to you guys. So no, but it's serious. At the end of my talk that I was giving, you know, just talking about automation, IT in general, stuff like that, they said, are there any things that you think, I think that, I can't remember the prompt 100%, but it was like, are there any things that like people that are going to be graduating college should know, like going into IT? And I said, oh, are there ever? And so I was unloading. I was like, I think my first thing I said was that they don't teach you troubleshooting in college. It's like there's no class to teach you troubleshooting. I was like, and that's in networking, that's more than half of what your job is figure out why something's going wrong. Or if you're like architecting, you know, and you're building stuff and you're labbing it, why isn't this working? I mean, so it's basically, I guess maybe troubleshooting is the majority of what we do for the most part. So it's like nobody teaches you that stuff. And not only that, nobody teaches you troubleshooting under duress. You know? I mean, they're not making you put Legos together while they're waterboarding you. You know what I mean? In like a college, or hooking you up to a TENS unit and zapping you like with the pop-up game or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's like you can't understand what real pressure is until you're in that environment, right? Until you're there. And what's funny is you need to learn troubleshooting. That is probably one of the harshest environments to try and learn. You know what I mean? That's like giving a guy a gun and then shipping him off to war with no training. Say, hey, figure it out. Good luck, guy. You know, hope we see you next week. Hope you survive it.
Go put this in a rack and don't take down the whole network while you're at it.
No kidding. Yeah, don't bend the yellow cables because they snap. They have glass inside. But no, like whenever I used to hire engineers, I would say, you know, this really is a stressful position. Things are going to go bad. They're going to go worse, and then they're going to get even worse. And my favorite line is, you're going to fold like a lawn chair, right? It's like when everything is breaking and burning around you, you're going to fold, you're going to fail. Don't worry about it. We all do it the first time. The second time, you'll make it a little bit longer before you break, and then we'll just keep working on that, right? And so I was thinking, that's what colleges really need, is some class to teach you troubleshooting, to teach you methodology. But then how do you also induce stress, right? Once they have a methodology and stuff like that, I think you really need to induce stress and have them repeat the task, right? Because your fight or flight kicks in when you're under duress like that. So all the blood leaves your brain and moves to your extremities so you could defend yourself or run away. And you need it in your head to think clearly. So you have to learn to control those emotions. And they just don't teach us.
So idea on that, how to add the duress to it. Go to your local college, find whoever it is teaching German or Russian, and then just have them talk loudly and quickly at whoever it is that's currently trying to fix something.
Just have them scream at them.
I mean, they could be saying nice things, but you don't know because it's in German and Russian. It just sounds like they're angry at you.
999.
That'll add duress.
For sure. But it got me thinking. It's like if you were done with your presentation and then a group of college kids said, what's something that I need to be prepared for in IT? I'm assuming each one of you has some unique experience that you would want to relay. What would you guys say to these young budding IT people?
If you intend on just showing up for your 9 to 5 and you don't intend on trying to learn more about upcoming technology, you will get left behind. You just go and do what you're told every day. So,
Yeah.
What? I don't know.
Say.
You could tell them if they feel like they just want to go 9 to 5 and not learn, then look for a government job.
Sure. Yeah. If you want to get ahead, you gotta have to learn outside of work because there's not necessarily time for training.
That's right.
So.
Well, that's it. That's fascinating too, because on-the-job training doesn't mean somebody's going to be holding your hand and teaching you. You know, an apprenticeship isn't what it used to be, where you'd go and weld with somebody or do mechanics. A lot of this is learning on the job means you get materials and you teach yourself, and I'll help steer the ship. I'll help guide you a little bit, but I can't hold your hand. Do you think that's what some kids expect when they get out there? I can't assume it is, but I mean, maybe.
Some guys, yeah. Like, I know some people who were like wanting to get into IT stuff just because it paid well and it sounded like kind of a cool job and such. It's the same reason like, there was a billion accountants in the 80s or whatever. Everybody got a business degree or accountant. Like, okay, you can go be a manager and such. You just show up, do your job, and for 8 hours a day, and then you go home and do whatever you like. IT's not structured that way, at least in the United States. You would really, really, really struggle if all you did was your 9 to 5, and that's when you limited your learning to and such, which maybe isn't healthy for IT, but like a lot of the people here are here because this is what we nerd out about, and so we get to do what we enjoy. So that's the unfortunate part for you there. There's just not that many nerd accountants out there. And they all got hired by somebody who can pay way more.
They all did Bitcoin and they're all really rich.
Yeah, they're very rich. What I would say, and I guess I have somewhat of a similar problem. One of my requirements is that they hire somebody who can do some portion of my job and do level 1 tech stuff, and in case me or my boss, my ex-boss, dies, he can replace us somewhat. Because I climb towers, he climbs towers. We both drive a long way, and he works farming stuff. I do farming stuff. Like, there's a good chance that one or the other of us will have a heart attack or leave at some point for
100% chance that you'll probably die.
Yeah.
At some point.
At some point.
I don't know. Neuralink, he's just going to attach one of those and upload to the Matrix.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I have somewhat of the same deal. Like, this kid who I wanted them to hire, he's really, really sharp, but I have to kind of get him caught up to speed with how IT works. But if I were to say to a bunch of college kids, wow. I would probably go for, if this isn't a passion for you, you will struggle. And even if it's not, find some way for like your passion to be integrated. Because like networking wasn't really my first passion, but just understanding of how things work really does. And I enjoy video gaming. Like, okay, figure out how to reduce your latency to whatever. That's how I did a lot of my self-teaching, or at least got myself rolling. Is like, okay, how do I reduce latency to the fiber connection that I have at work over my wireless? I have 30 miles of wireless stuff in between me and my work. How do I fix that and fix that in my own house? And
Fiber
every
down.
little millisecond was a game for me. So yeah, learn how this stuff can affect you practically, and benefit you, or have a passion for it. Definitely would be where I would go for it. Because like somebody who doesn't have a passion for it, like you're really going to, like, you're gonna have to spend hours and hours and hours on these super weird, annoying problems. And it's either A, you spend all that time, or B, you hire an expensive contractor. And you can do that. That's an option. And there's plenty of people in the industry who they just maintain the network and they hire contractors to make changes and fix whatever problems happen. But that's expensive, and you're not going to get ahead doing that. What about you, Mike? What would you say for college students?
Well, I would start off with saying you have to be ready to embrace stupid people. And then I would segue that into, by that I mean...
Is that the people you're hiring
and
you're the boss and you're like, I'm a stupid person, so get ready. So you guys are where you're going with that?
Perhaps. I'd love to hire someone smarter than me, so that way then I could offload a bunch of crap.
Amen.
And by that I mean you're never gonna get, or you're rarely told accurate information. You're never told the complete picture. There's always stuff missing, so you can't assume that you've been given the entire picture accurately. You're going to have to double check everything you've been told until you've figured out, who knows their crap and who doesn't. And you still have to double check it, on occasion. You get told the internet doesn't work. Okay, well, what doesn't work about it? Like, I would expect that from a user. What's a technician telling me the internet doesn't work? What pings? What doesn't ping? What does traceroute tell you? What is, are you getting a DHCP? Accurate collection and conveyance of information is vital and rarely done well.
It's you sound like House. And he always said, people lie. Yeah. People always lie. But that's so funny that you say that is I've run into that multiple times in my career too, and you're absolutely right. So one of my problems was that I had to learn and teach other people is don't assume the person you're talking to knows what they're talking about. So they may not be lying to you, right? What they think is accurate, but they completely don't understand what they're talking about. So I've worked with guys and they have like CCIE in their email signature, and they miss like the most basic things. And so you have to be very self-deprecating and say, man, I'm sure you've already done this. I'm sure you've already tried this, but can you check blah, blah, blah for me? And then, it's like, oh yeah, the network card wasn't plugged in. You know what I mean? It's like, how did you not even think to look at that? So you see that signature, or there's the assumption that they know what they're talking about. And so you're starting at step 40 instead of step 1. And, you just can't figure it out. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, this guy's a ding dong. That's the problem. So yeah, I definitely know what you mean. So I guess there's a nicer way of saying people are idiots.
See, but then that would get attention. And then segue into what you mean.
For sure.
Some people are idiots, but that also is just some people will just make mistakes, or they just forgot to look at something. You know, I had a guy the other day, you know, he's not an idiot, but we're trying to troubleshoot why he can't, you know, why he can't get online at this particular customer. And as it turns out, he has static IP set to something. Not going to work. Toggle that over to DHCP. Okay, here we go. And then, you know, he said, oh my God, I'm such an idiot, you know, once he saw what it was. But it was like, you know, just something that was missed. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's not always malicious. It's not always that they didn't know those things. It's just sometimes things get missed. You
Do you ask potential hires about the OSI model and how it relates to troubleshooting?
Well, to be
Greg's like,
fair,
well, I don't know what the OSI model is.
BDNT-SPA.
Wait, hold on
Don't
a
lie
second.
to me.
Always start at
Get outta
layer
here.
1, baby.
Physical data link network. I know.
But also if they go on too much about the OSI, oh, you know, blah 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 is layer 3, blah 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 is layer 4. It's like, you know what, that doesn't really matter. Like, all you have to just know is what's on top of what. You don't have to know which numbers things are in your day-to-day operations. Just if your IP doesn't work, check your Mac. If your Mac doesn't work, is it plugged in? Like, you just have to know how they are relative.
I know. When you're having a
But you've
nerd
got
battle, you
people-
got to keep all that stuff straight, though.
As my cousin said, always check layer 1 first. So, but I
check
in
layer 8
regards
first.
to, well, okay, you know, you check to make certain it's working. But I've been training some guy new, and he's older than my dad, and it's so interesting experience. But we had this lady, and she just had this beautiful, massive house built, and they ran Ethernet, and her contractor ran Ethernet outside for us to hook up to, and it's like, oh, that's great, but it's got 8 feet of solid rock wall, like rock with like little bits of very fine mortar, and so it's like we can't get up to there without special stuff that we don't have today. And so like we're going around with various options, and it's like, well, if if you went with the other company out here, you could, not have to do all this silliness. And she's like, well, geez, that's might be the option we're gonna go with. And I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna go walk around. Randy, you just chat with her for a minute. You maybe go over any other ideas you have. I'm just gonna walk around the house and see if there's anything else, any other option. And I walked to the exact opposite side of the house. She'd said there's no other Ethernet. The contractor she called up, there's no other Ethernet out. Right there's Cat 5e and then right outside of the house. I'm like, and as we were leaving, I'm like, Randy, you know what we learned today? Customer always is lying. Either they don't know what they're talking about, or they're explicitly not telling you the truth. And it is true. Like, that happens all the time. Check to make certain whatever they say is true is actually true. And that's an amazing line. Good job, Mike. That's a great one to have running into, this industry. How do you check to make certain what the case is? Like, because in college you're taught, okay, this is the question, what's the answer? But when in this real world, it's okay, the question isn't actually accurate. What's the answer? You have to figure out what the actual question is, and then figure out the answer for that, that's a hard one. And I don't know if you can really teach that in school, without having really weird classes and people not enjoying that.
I think too, you have to have something of a flexible mind, right? Because I don't know about a lot. I've met a handful of people at least that are very binary, right? There's only the right way and then the wrong way. There's no middle ground, and it's just, if you try and hit that gray area, it's really tough for them, and they just stall and they can't keep going. And oh man, another one is perfectionism. Perfectionism is the enemy of any network engineer, I think, because I've worked with guys that are definitely perfectionists, and they never finish anything because it's never perfect, and they stall and they have problems, and it's a nightmare. So you have to let that go and learn that good or rather, what do they say? It's like perfect is the enemy of great or good, whatever it happens to be. You know, if you're always striving for that, you're never gonna actually attain that goal. So maybe that's another interesting one I could tell them.
I'd say also like always be like just explore around like for your deal, like, you know, don't encourage them too much because you want to make them be interested in Ansible when they leave the deal. But you know, if I were going in without a bias, I would say, you know, I'd never heard of Mikrotik before I started working at my current job. Like, we had Cisco at the school that I worked at. We had SonicWall at another school, and they had it was some other. You see the advertisement in airports all the time. So you have like these mega huge places that and those are the big names, but an entire industry is built on this company that isn't really following the normal general rules of. So be willing to like take a look at these other companies and what other options are out there, especially ones that really seem like wow, that seems, you know, 2 10 gigabit Ethernet ports for $100. That's pretty darn. You know, that be willing to kind of explore that because you can not only enable yourself, like to do other stuff, or B, you know, I saved my workplace 20 grand, 22 grand or something because I figured out how to make the GPen 21 work instead of what we were going to be using. So, you know, that's a lot, and that means a lot. And, you know, we'll, you know, be willing to look at the industry and what's happening out there. I mean, and training, like learning and doing that stuff, like it's a never-ending job in that regards. But yeah, don't burn yourself out though. Like, this is maybe what you love to do, but, you know, we're human beings. We have multiple component parts to us. We may be 90% water, but there's carbon and other stuff to us that you got.
Lots of bacteria.
So,
Warm, liquid, gooey parts.
yes. Yeah. Lots of gooey stuff.
Yeah, something else I told them was be yes-centric. Because that got me a long way of just saying yes to things instead of like immediately.
Oh, so you're a yes man?
Absolutely. No, but it's like I was saying, you know, you can say no by saying yes, right? And that might seem counterintuitive, but like if somebody would ever come to me with a project that wasn't feasible, I would say, yeah, we can absolutely do that. But it's going to cost, you know, $150,000 more than you have budget for, and it's going to take a year, you know, and in the end, that was saying no, right? So there's a lot of different ways to say no without actually having to say no. And to me, I don't know, just like saying yes to things just makes you kind of this more positive influence, and people tend to listen to you more. And honestly, that's where I got where I was, just by saying yes. Like, hey, can we do this thing? And I would say, sure. And then I would hurry up and I would figure out how we could do this thing. Like, I didn't have a clue if we could actually do that thing. I assumed we could. I knew it was possible. Was I capable? I usually could figure it out. So I think just taking on stuff is kind of a big one. You know, saying yes to things, to me, has been very valuable. Now, I'm not advocating you lie to people, but you know what I mean? It's like, say yes to opportunities, even if you're a little bit afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Also told them to apply for jobs, even if they only had like 60% of what was on the paper, or even if they only had 40%, or if it was something they really wanted, apply for that anyway. It was like, because a lot of times, and I'm sure you guys will agree, that somebody with attitude and aptitude that, you know, are really into technology, they really want this job, they're probably going to be a better fit than somebody who maybe has something on a resume that could potentially look good. What do you think?
They get it and they want it.
Yeah.
They get it and they want it. That's part of traction.
Yeah. So if you've got the attitude and the aptitude, start applying for this stuff, because if you can get in front of them, they'll see it, right? And they want that. They want that energy.
I will say, as someone looking at resumes recently, it is annoying when you're looking for a networking position and you get non-networking people
They
applying.
have like absolutely no networking experience.
Yeah, like just, or if they're strong IT, but not any networking or any routing
Right.
like no firewall. It's,
Also said,
I know Active Directory
Yeah.
really well or something like that. It's like it's not the skill set I'm looking for.
I would use the, to kind of gauge that. Do you have experience with any dynamic routing protocols? Any of them? Because once you've got one down, the rest are easy enough, and then you know enough in networking. If you don't have that, you've not crossed the line.
Well, I also said work on your human networking, right? Meet people, make those connections, because it's a whole lot easier to get a job if you know somebody there, right? Like if they personally know you and they know you've got that good. So even if it was Miller's guy that is just strong IT, if Miller knows him and he really knows that he's got the right attitude, the right fit, like culture wise or whatever, and maybe that'll get you in the door. It definitely worked for me. The Fibertown job, I found that through a friend of mine, and then this red hat, I found it through a friend of mine, so it's worked out well.
Yeah, that was me. I got hired because I knew the several people on our board of directors, and my ex-boss had offered me a job almost a decade ahead beforehand. So yeah, normally he would interview the person, as well as my current boss, so that he could make certain. And he's like, "No, I know you. I know you're an obnoxious little twit who will ask questions until everyone is tired of it, and you have a little bit of knowledge that's going to get you into so much freaking trouble." So, yeah, I came into my job with a philosophy degree, guys. Like, I knew Jack. I knew there was this thing called IP and there was MAC addresses. You can. It's not impossible. It's really hard, and you have to spend a boatload of time
to
get up to speed.
Is that better or worse than Nick B's art degree?
Well, there's theoretically a possibility of making money with art. I don't know anybody who makes money with a philosophy degree, especially with the debt that you would incur most of the time.
Well, isn't philosophy sometimes like a precursor to becoming a lawyer?
Yeah. A lot of guys will get a philosophy degree and then go on to like law or there's another one. Some business degree or something. Also likes it a lot. There's a lot of precursor for something like that.
Excellent. My kid is like super into philosophy, so maybe I can steer him off that path. You've warned me enough. I get it.
Well, the irony was I was graduating high school, and my uncle, I was sick and tired of telling everybody, "Oh, go do computer science, X and Y college, whatever." And I was like, just blew off this one. I was like, I kind of want to study philosophy. And my uncle, he's an amazing guy. He's Space Force now, and he's like, philosophy is a completely useless degree. Don't do that. You'd be wasting your time. And I got my degree in the mail. I was like, remembered that day. I was like, called him up. "Hey, Uncle Mike, guess what I just got in the mail?" And he's like, yeah. Well, obviously you don't listen. So you do
what's so funny is my kid loves to argue, loves to debate stuff. So maybe that's why he's so interested in philosophy. You said you...
Maybe he could be a politician.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, politicians would... Well, see, philosophy has this love of truth. That is the, search of it and such. So, yeah, politicians, philosophers, Plato liked the idea. He liked the idea of a philosopher politician, but no one else did. For good
Truth
reason.
is malleable. That's the problem.
Love of wisdom. Actually, philosophy is love of wisdom, but
Or is it that truth is for sale?
Yeah.
Whoever's got the most money buys whatever the truth really is. They dictate reality.
yeah. Well, so TLDR, don't get into this business unless you really thoroughly love it and you listen to podcasts about it in your free time.
Rock and roll, man. All right, kids, we are at the 2-hour mark. Wow, this is a really long one. So, do you guys have any closing wisdom, or are you ready to put a fork in it?
One thing I wanted to inject in there real
All
quick. We haven't made fun of Ubiquity in a while,
Lord.
but this will be quick. I'm just they've got a new blog post trying to solicit feedback about what they have done wrong as a company and where they need to improve.
Shit, dog.
And then from that, they link to a feature request section where you're just supposed to put all your feedback. And it is going about I looked about a week after it had launched. It's going about as well as you thought it would.
So they're going to name the new product Bodie McBoatface? Is that kind of internet request?
There's a lot of people saying, why don't you just read the existing feature request sections instead of making another one? Some people are saying, you're going to ignore whatever we say anyway. Why does it matter? Just on and on and on about not really convinced that they care.
Yeah. Don't EOL products intentionally making them unmanageable.
So if you are a Ubiquity customer, it's good to go there and provide your feedback to help influence your manufacturer. And also, if you're into comedy, go there with the thought that none of this will ever happen anyway, and just kind of laugh at what you see.
All right, good times. Holy cow. Yeah, all right. Well, you said you like controversy, Tommy, so there you go, buddy.
This is where I will thrive for the next.
You will find sustenance there. All right, good deal. All right, well, let's stick a fork in it. Miller, if folks want to find you out on the internet, got to point that way. That's where you are on my screen. No, you're not. You're over there. Miller, how do people go about that?
Well, I'm most active on Slack for sure. It's the easiest way to get a hold of me. I'm also on Facebook. I have a blog which I haven't updated in a long time, which I think is still running. Haven't checked
I
it
was
in a
so
while.
proud of you when you started updating it every now and then.
Yeah, I have some stuff. I'm going to be redoing some of my infrastructure, and when I do it, I usually take that opportunity to document it on my blog. So, yeah. I'll have some stuff up there maybe.
Wicked. Good deal, man. All right, Mikey.
And the blog is still running.
Oh, you just verified.
Good.
Mikey, how do people get a hold of you out on the internet?
Patreon.com/thebrotherswisp. And then someone else will address whatever you need
He
from
says that, but he's always responding to stuff in the Slack. You're always there. When people at you, you're there within like 10 minutes. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, I'm pretty quick on there, but gives the opportunity for someone else to address it without involving
I know.
me.
I love it because somebody will answer the question before I get to it, and they'll actually put the right answer there. So I don't have to like make up the wrong things. It's pretty brilliant. I love it. All right, Tommy Krogan. Sorry. I always want to call you like Freddy Krueger. Tommy Krogan. How do people get a hold of you out on the internets?
See, lostcreek.tech is my website /blog. T Krogan, Croghan, at lostcreek.tech. You can email me if you have questions, comments, or concerns about my terrorist activities. Or the Brothers Wisp. I'm on there all the time, helping out people. Also, I am William5 on the Mimosa forums. So if you have Mimosa questions or general network questions, I'm on there every day, most days to help people out there. And if your question is beyond me, I can at Mimosa people and get them to. I can summon them most of the time to help you out.
Wizard, why don't you make instead of making people figure out how to spell your last name, why don't you just make an alias Tommy at Lost Creek .tech?
Oh, that's actually a really good
that way
idea.
I can just tell people, hey,
I
just
should do
email
that.
Tommy at blah blah. It would be so much easier.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good idea. I'll do that because I have been doing that, signing up for Aaron. I have, the billing and accounts and such. I'll just do that right bloody now.
All right. If you want to get a hold of me, I'm Greg at gregsoul.com. You can go to my blog, gregsoul.com, where I blog super regularly now. I'm sticking to my 2 per week. And, well, it doesn't look like I've been doing anything, but I've been updating old posts. So I've got kind of my Ansible omnibus where I just put like little stuff that I wish I knew when I got started. So I'm just slowly kind of fleshing that thing out and filling it out. I did more variable stuff this week, and I can't remember what the other blog post was. It was probably less impressive, but go and check that stuff out. If you want to get a hold of me, probably the quickest way is in the Little Brothers Wisp Slack, and that's patreon.com/thebrotherswisp. I'm really good about answering ets or direct messages, stuff like that. So please pop in and contribute. Any questions, comments, please keep them coming. As Mike said, he doesn't think it's a good idea to open up the Sonar question form to the wide internet. So we'll just leave it there in the Sonar channel for now. But if you do have any questions that you would like asked on there, please pop in and update that, because I want to make it as fleshed out as possible. Also, kind of the better description you can put in there, the better that is, right? Because I'm not a user of the product specifically, so I may not know what you're talking about, so the better you can put in there. And there's also a column for if you have the exact same question, just increase the number, right? So if 3 people have already said, yeah, me too on that, just make it 4. That way we can kind of order that list of, what's most important, what is least important to you guys. All right, so thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Miller. It's good to see you again, bud. Mike, Tommy, and all of you listeners. Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Stop there.
That was the topic.
I'm telling you, you don't know what you are missing. Ideas and some good comedy given. If you missed the show already, don't worry, you're forgiven.